Good afternoon. I'm Bethany Stevens, Senior Advisor and NASA Press Secretary, and I'm pleased to serve as your moderator for today's announcement. We have a powerhouse lineup of speakers joining us today, including NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman, Kennedy Space Center Director Brian Hughes, Director of Aeronautics Lori Grindle, and elected officials from across the Sunshine State, including Senator Ashley Moody, Congressman Mike Herodopoulos, Congressman Darren Soto, Congressman Byron Donalds, and Congressman Corey Mills. First, please join me in welcoming NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman. A lifelong space enthusiast, record-setting pilot, entrepreneur, and commercial astronaut, Administrator Isaacman was nominated by President Trump to lead NASA and confirmed in 2025. Administrator Isaacman, welcome.
Thank you all for being here today. I would also just like to again thank some of our speakers who are here today. So Senator Director again, Brian Hughes, it's great to have you here. Director Grindle from our Aeronautics Division. Thank you, Senator Moody, for being here. Congressman Herodopoulos, Congressman Soto, Congressman Donalds. Appreciate it, as well as the rest of our federal and state elected leadership that are here, just champions for the state of Florida, but especially, and very much appreciated, champions for NASA and our world-changing mission. So for over 250 years, America has led and inspired the world with our accomplishments. And that didn't happen by accident. The conquest of the American wilderness, the foundation of the greatest and most resilient democratic republic in history, and our leadership in air going back to the Wright brothers and in space by the pioneers of decades past, all happened because of the brave men and women that made the decision to take on the incredible, the near impossible challenges and succeed. That is our mandate at NASA, and I assure you we are not slowing down. President Trump has empowered every government agency to pursue the exciting, the big, bold, ambitious ideas that made America the greatest country in the world, and that is exactly what we are doing at NASA right now. Over the last few months, we have revealed some of the most incredible missions of science, exploration, and discovery in NASA's history. The Artemis II voyage around the moon was just the beginning. We are accelerating the Artemis program. In fact, Artemis III rocket is being stacked right now in the vehicle assembly building, and following that flight, we will return American astronauts to the lunar surface in 2028. Now, alongside that effort, we are building the first outpost on another world, a moon base. And we are still doing all the other things. We are pioneering quiet supersonic flight with the X-59. We are launching the Nancy Grace Space Telescope. In fact, in just a matter of weeks, we're launching Dragonfly, all to pursue and unlock the secrets of the universe, as well as launching SR-1 Freedom to finally get America underway on nuclear power in space. A small step towards a nuclear NASA that will see American astronauts, like those that are joining us today in the T-38, we got Raja and Denise there that have brought this NASA T-38 here, where again, we'll see the day where American astronauts, NASA astronauts, may plant the stars and stripes on planet Mars. Now, the American people have invested in NASA programs and waited patiently to see the world-changing missions like Artemis II. And they deserve to know and see what we are building and showcase the aerospace capabilities the talent of NASA has helped pioneer. That's why it is my great privilege to announce today, Max Power.
Go for launch. Full send.
President Trump's administration is all about bringing back the big, bold endeavors that once defined American exceptionalism.
That's one small step for man.
And NASA is very much on board. On November 7th, NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida, will kick off Max Power, a two-day event showcasing the best of American innovation in air and space, right here on American soil at the historic Shuttle Landing Facility. Max Power will feature space hardware, NASA and DOW aircraft, interactive mission simulators, moon rovers. You're going to have Apollo astronauts there, Artemis astronauts will be there, behind-the-scenes experiences, one hell of an air show, and maybe even a rocket launch or two. As we honor America's 250th birthday, Max Power will help set the stage for the next 250 years of American engineering greatness. Together with our collaborators, this will be an event remembered for generations.
We sure know how to make a hype video, I'll tell you that. So as you just saw, November 7th and November 8th, NASA's Kennedy Space Center will open what was the once restricted and certainly historic shuttle landing facility to the interested public and host this multi-day celebration featuring world-class air shows, tech demonstrations, space exhibits. We're going to have science experiments, simulations, and as I mentioned in the video, maybe even a rocket launch or two. Now, for those 2 days, the American people will be able to see the future taking shape in front of them. As we celebrate 250 years of American leadership, Max Power will give visitors demonstrations of next-generation hardware that could one day be operating on the lunar surface, travel through deep space, or contribute to missions that we have not even yet imagined. There will be performances from the Department of War aircraft, including the United States Air Force Thunderbirds will be here, NASA's aeronautics portfolio, as well as other civilian acts and performers. And if we do this right, a child walking through Kennedy that weekend will see something that maybe changes the trajectory of his or her life. They will put down maybe their phone and look up to the sky and decide that they want to become an engineer or a scientist, a pilot or an astronaut, and contribute to humanity's absolute greatest adventure. This is how the next generation really begins their journey. NASA is bringing a showcase of American technological leadership across air and space back to U.S. soil. We are setting the stage for exhibitions at Kennedy Space Center that could redefine the way aerospace companies conduct business, highlight their capabilities, and inspire the next generation of future explorers. Max Power 2026 is just the beginning, and we welcome you all to come out and experience the possibilities. Thank you very much.
Next, please welcome Kennedy Space Center and Wallops Flight Facility Director Brian Hughes. A Florida native, Air Force veteran, former national security official, and former NASA Chief of Staff, Brian brings extensive experience to his role leading two of NASA's key facilities. Welcome, Brian.
Well, good afternoon. Thanks, everybody. This is an exciting day. And just remember, the weather in November is a lot less dynamic here than it is in August. Since JFK's inspirational challenge in the early days of NASA and America's space program, Kennedy Space Center has been at the heart of our nation's leadership in space exploration. Here at KSC, the eyes of the world witnessed a few daring men leave our planet and venture to the unknown territory on the surface of the moon. From here, Space Shuttle Columbia took its maiden flight, commencing a human spaceflight program that would span nearly 3 decades. From KSC, the people and materials for the International Space Station began what is now a constant American presence in Earth's orbit for now over 25 years. From right here, NASA and our commercial partners are launching the hopes and dreams of the nation as we pave the way to a future of long-term human presence in deep space on the moon and beyond. This iconic location and the people who work here have literally written the most transformative chapters of our nation's history. We have the historic launch facilities and pads here at Kennedy Space Center, as well as with our partners at Cape Canaveral Space Force, which have been the place on Earth for the vehicles that have taken humanity to new heights. Even right here where we're seated today, as the administrator said, we're at the shuttle landing facility, which has supported decades of crew arrivals and crew returns as we celebrate men and women who risk everything to venture in the great beyond. For millions of people across the globe, Kennedy Space Center is synonymous with inspiration and awe. In fact, it was a trip here to Kennedy Space Center as a 3.5-year-old in 1973, a picture from which is posted in my office. That's where my dream about NASA and space began. So the seeds that are planted here at Kennedy can literally change a life and inspire dreams. So of course, it is perfect that Kennedy Space Center serves as the launching point for an extraordinary event to celebrate the dedication, the innovation, determination, and inspiration that has allowed this agency to transform dreams into reality and ambition into achievement for more than 60 years. There's no better place to celebrate the triumphs of the past, and there's no better place to offer inspiration to the future than right here at Kennedy Space Center and I'm excited to be a part of it. So thank you all.
We're also pleased to welcome Lori Grindle, Director of NASA's Aeronautics Division within the Research and Technology Mission Directorate. An accomplished aviator and flight engineer, Lori brings a wealth of experience and expertise to today's event. Please welcome Lori.
Well, good afternoon. When most people hear NASA, they think of America's space program, but we're also America's aeronautics research leader. At NASA, we don't just study flight, we redefine it. And every time you board a commercial jet, it's using technologies pioneered by NASA. And we're still transforming aviation today. We're developing those technologies for faster and more efficient aircraft, and we're teaming with US companies to safely integrate groundbreaking new aircraft into our skies. Max Power is a chance to show the world NASA's leadership in aviation firsthand. And one of the ways we'll be doing that is by sharing what it's like to work with the world's best research aircraft. NASA's research fleet includes aircraft that operate anywhere from just above the ground all the way up to the upper edge of the atmosphere, and from a slow hover all the way up to Mach 2. I want it. Yeah, right on. Sorry, wishful thinking. Today, the aircraft fleet, all the way up to Mach 2, which is still more than 1,500 miles per hour. So this aircraft fleet is supported by the experts who keep them flying and the teams that use them to do amazing things. Each of our aircraft reflects a different aspect of NASA's mission. For example, you may know our F-15s and FA-18s as fighter jets, but at NASA, they allow us to perform research in high-speed, high-altitude environments. They can carry experimental hardware payloads, or we can even modify them for adding experimental components like scale model wings or next generation sensors that allow us to perform tests that would be impossible in a wind tunnel. These aircraft also serve as safety chase plane for our quiet supersonic X-59 currently undergoing flight testing in California. And we also have them for the Freedom 250 event in their nice new livery. A few of them are doing that. And that's X-59, you can see that there. So operating at altitudes above 99% of the Earth's atmosphere are ER-2s, and that's NASA's highest flying airborne science platform. We've used this research workforce for everything from testing wildfire tracking systems to calibrating the space-based sensors that allow us to monitor Earth's atmospheric conditions. We also operate a fleet of helicopters, like the one behind us, that we've outfitted to test technologies like precision lunar landing systems. This gives us a practical way on the Earth to evaluate the technologies will be required to operate on the moon. And we'll need that data for our missions, including the more than 20 robotic landings planned for the phase 1 of our moon base. You can expect to see more from NASA Aeronautics in the coming years, more airborne testing, more X-planes, more smart traffic management, and more groundbreaking innovation as we continue to build the future of aviation. And Max Power is an opportunity to see some of the remarkable aircraft NASA's using to realize that future and allow you to share in the excitement of aviation research. Thank you.
Joining us from the Sunshine State is Senator Ashley Moody, a fifth-generation Floridian, former judge, former Florida Attorney General, and now U.S. Senator. Please welcome Senator Moody.
They said there were stairs. No one told me. It's all right. Well, you have heard from three folks who I hope you could hear in their voice how passionate they are about America's place in the next space race. Lori, Brian, Jared, your remarks were inspiring, and I think we're all comforted knowing you are at the helms of your respective divisions. And I will say, in terms of NASA, Jared Isaacman and I have spent a lot of time talking about the need to keep America in first place of the next space race and how important that is for our nation. And I cannot tell you Substantively, this guy knows everything there is to know about making that happen, and he is energetic. I'm telling you, it's almost like he's got a bullhorn and he's yelling at everybody, we gotta stay ahead, we gotta stay ahead, we gotta stay ahead, and it's true. We're doing everything in our power to make sure that that happens by making sure we're having investment into Florida's Space Coast. We've already passed legislation. I was so proud to get that done as Florida's newest U.S. Senator, and we're working on a bill right now to make sure we get passed called Space Ready 2.0 that allows voluntary private investment in so much of our launch pad. You heard about NASA's role in leading in this space race. I want to talk about Florida's for a moment. As Florida's senator that represents the amazing Florida Space Coast, this is the launch pad of all space exploration. It has been. Florida is so proud of that. From the Mercury and Gemini missions to the Apollo missions to now the Artemis missions, the launches take place right here. And most Floridians don't even know that Florida's Space Coast launches 40% of the world's launches. In terms of spaceports, right here at our Florida Space Coast, we launch more than every other spaceport in the United States combined. So when we talk about bringing together all of our assets to show off the max power of the United States of America in this space exploration and space race, it can be no other place than Florida's Space Coast, because we are leading the way for the rest of the nation in making sure that we win this race. I am so proud to be the senator that gets to help in this endeavor, to get to be here for this great announcement. As we are picking up our cadence in launches, just in the last decade, we now launch 500% more a year from Florida's Space Coast. We expect within the next decade, we're gonna see 500 launches every single year. That is amazing news for the United States of America, but it's great news for the economy and the people of the state of Florida. So thank you very much for sharing this news today. We're in it with you, and we cannot wait until November. Thanks so much.
There are stairs on this side if the next participants would like to use them. And next, please welcome Congressman Mike Herodopoulos, who represents Florida's 8th Congressional District. A longtime public servant who spent 12 years in the Florida legislature, Congressman Herodopoulos represents Kennedy Space Center in the U.S. House and chairs the subcommittee on space and aeronautics.
Well, thank you so much. As Ashley said perfectly, the future of America is right here on the Space Coast. We could not be more excited about how things are literally taking off. And everyone in this room knows you can't be #1 on Earth if you're #2 in space and technology. It is so exciting to see this place explode in a positive way and move forward like never before. And let's also compare where we were just a few years ago. When the shuttle program went away, many of us wondered, would this still be the place where we launch dreams, new experiments, and on our way back to Moon and later Mars? We were not sure. But the state of Florida, led by Governor Scott, more recently Governor DeSantis, has stepped up like never before, worked with our friends in Washington, D.C. to make sure that Florida stays that hub of not just activity, but where we reach for the stars. And to be perfectly clear of how committed we are in Washington, D.C. to make sure that Florida is that epicenter, we have not only put record funding forth for NASA, but we actually increased it further. We put almost $10 billion in the big bill passed last July because we wanted to make the investment necessary. And what's equally fascinating and exciting is that we have a leader at NASA today that has energized this place like never before. I just like to call him James Bond. The guy flies around in planes. It's pretty good, Jared. Well done, my friend. And also think about the sacrifice he's making. An incredibly successful person has said, I'm going to give back to my country. That's what's exciting about America today. We're bringing the best and the brightest right here to win the new space race, and we're thrilled about it. And finally, here in the district, let me just say a couple things. I know one of our local officials, including the mayor of Titusville, is here today. Our kids are getting a first-class education right in high school and can go to work in the spaceports around this area. And if you go off to a school like UCF, where 30% of our engineers come from UCF, that's Florida dynamism. We're not just sands and beaches anymore and Disney. We are the economic superpower. And with that max power coming in, I've been to Farnborough, I've been to Paris. When they come to Florida, they're not going to go anywhere else. And I could not be more thrilled about it. I want to say thank you to Jared Isaacman and the entire team. You all bring an incredible new dynamism to this. And Ashley has done just a remarkable job, not only in bringing space bonds and making it a reality, but this new program where we're having private sector investment, investing in this infrastructure so we are the launch pad for the future. And I could not be more thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
Please also welcome Congressman Darren Soto, who represents Florida's 9th Congressional District. Now in his second decade of public service, Congressman Soto previously served in both chambers of the Florida legislature. Please welcome Congressman Soto.
Administrator Isaacman, Director Hughes, Director Grindell, what an incredible day, what an incredible announcement for America's 250th anniversary. 2026 has been a big year. We saw Artemis II launched just down the way there, and I was proud to be the only member of Congress who've seen both launches, both Artemis I and II, a point of pride. We're excited and wish you the best of luck on the Nancy Grace Roman telescope to be able to observe far-off worlds, and now the Max Power Showcase, highlighting American space leadership. In Florida's 9th Congressional District, over in Central Florida, the district right next door, we get to see launches twice a week from our backyard. But now this gives us another opportunity to view all these machines up close. And if you want to go beyond Mach 2, by the way, which I know that came up, UCF's hyperspace program is going to help us get there. And so thank you for the funding of that great program. Seeing NASA, Space Force, SpaceX, ULA, Blue Origin, all these great players come together to inspire the next generation of explorers, I find inspiring as well. And Artemis II will have a rendezvous with the moon lander, and eventually Artemis IV, a rendezvous with destiny. And so I'm excited as we make our journey back to the moon, to Mars and beyond, that we are supporting these efforts in Congress, and we must do it together. Thank you, everyone.
And finally, please welcome Congressman Byron Donalds, who has represented Florida's 19th Congressional District in the U.S. House since 2021. Before coming to Congress, Congressman Donalds served in the Florida legislature. Clearly, there's a theme today. Please welcome Congressman Donalds.
Well, first of all, it's really an honor and a pleasure to be here. We are thoroughly excited for Max Power. Administrator Isaacman, directors, we want to thank you guys so much for all your leadership here. But more importantly, we are excited to let the world know that Florida is going to be the home of commercial space and aerospace technology for the future, not just of the United States, but on this very planet. In Florida, we want to make sure that we are committed to making sure that our workforce, like was talked about by Congressman Soto and Congressman Haradopoulos, that our workforce is prepared for the future, whether that's engineering or whether that's the machinists, the contractors, the builders, the electricians, and the welders that are going to be a part of this great mission that's going to lead not just Florida, but the United States into the future. And listening to Senator Moody, one thing that I'd be remiss in not adding is, the history of space has always come through Florida. We know that Mission Control was in Houston. We're aware of that in Florida. But the takeoff, the launch occurred here. All the launches, the vast majority, are going to be here. And we look forward to being a true pioneer leader, working with you guys, and all that we're going to do to make sure that we win the race of space and beyond, coming right through the great state of Florida. Congratulations on all you do. I'm looking forward to Max Power. That's going to be a great event. See you guys.
And we understand that some of our congressional leaders may need to depart, and we're going to open the floor to questions. There is a microphone over here that you can line up at to ask your questions, and we'll call on you. And then have our speakers that are here on stage able to answer questions.
All right, hi, Richard Trabue, Orlando Sentinel. This is for the administrator. Are you a bigger fan of the Thunderbirds or the Blue Angels? And are you going to be flying up there during this show? And if you're not, what are you most looking forward to looking at on the ground in terms of NASA's new toys? Thanks.
So I am going to say I am equally excited and supportive of both the Thunderbirds and Blue Angels as America's premier demonstration teams. I'm new to politics, but I'm a quick learner here in all this. We're thrilled that Thunderbirds are going to be able to come and showcase their talents here at Kennedy Space Center during the Max Power event. I'm telling you, I'm excited about the whole thing. You're going to have Artemis 3. That's going to be right around that time is essentially when we're targeting a rollout for its next wet dress rehearsal. You're going to have astronauts here from the Apollo era and the Artemis era sharing their experiences with the interested public. Not to mention, again, a showcase of technology, that's going to make its way to the lunar surface in the years ahead. So it's going to be really exciting. And yes, I will certainly be flying in Max Power. So, thank you. By the way, I also want to highlight, aside from the Max Power event that we've announced here, I think pretty exciting that the head of aeronautics within the NASA Research and Technology Mission Directorate announced a Mach 10 aircraft. A lot of people, I know you're excited. Well, he was. Roger would have been excited.
I'm just going to go ahead and pull the mic so that we can pass it between our participants, and I will hand it over to Manuel.
Thank you. Manuel Masanti with Exploración Espacial. Administrator, Max Power is going to be a regular event, like an annual event? Like it's going to be competing with the rest of the air shows in the country? What's the idea?
Well, I feel reasonably confident with the contributions of the American aerospace industry, along with our partners and other agencies and DOW, that what we will create here at Kennedy Space Center will not have a competitor. But yes, certainly the idea is that this event, Max Power, becomes the first of many.
Hello, Max Evans from NASASpaceflight.com. I guess this can be for anybody. What can a NASA-hosted show like this provide over a show like Oshkosh, Farnborough, Paris?
Well, I'll start out just at the microphone, and I happen to be a big fan of the Oshkosh show that takes place every year. I think you're talking very different intent and vibes from that type of event. That is absolutely the greatest fly-in in the world, and if you attended, you probably know it is. People are camping out, and it's much more of I would say, a social event from the general aviation community. What we're talking about here is America's premier expo to showcase the technology in aerospace of the future, and it happens to be alongside a great air show. So I don't think it has a competitor within the U.S., and I think if we do our job right, it won't have one either on the world stage. Anyone?
I'd just add to that as the administrator said, those are great gatherings. They've obviously built quite a history and quite a reputation. But isn't it a shame when American companies have to go to Paris or England to announce the groundbreaking things they've done or are about to do? So we have an opportunity at this location, which happens to be an iconic part of NASA and the nation's history, to build something that, again, isn't just an air show, although that's cool, but has a real potential to rival them in its appeal to commercial partnerships.
Hi, Will Robinson Smith with Spaceflight Now. Thank you all for your time today. Thinking about the top line of this, can you give an overview of if NASA is going to be footing the bill entirely for this Air and Space show? What's the cost? And the administrator, you mentioned that it'll be around the time of rollout for the Artemis 3 wet dress. Is there any concern about the logistics from that happening sort of in concert with all the movement that's going to be happening with this Air and Space Show? Thank you.
I certainly hope we have, to work some deconfliction issues between the event and Artemis 3 rollout in November. That would be fantastic. But I actually think that if our timing works out, it will be a fantastic way to complement what should already be a rather extraordinary event. Now, this is not something that NASA is going to be footing the bill for in this. I mean, these type of events do happen around the world. They're sponsor-driven. We're making available this great real estate, no different than you would see at major events. Nellis has an air show, Andrews and others. But we'll be contributing a lot of our talent, and we'll be contributing some of our aircraft from the NASA portfolio, which we fly around at various events on they're certainly becoming normal course, and especially during America's 250th birthday.
I just add, I will take it as my own scolding, that our partners at Space Florida represent, so we talked a bit about the commercial partnerships that exist here and across NASA, but here in Florida, the partnership we have with Space Florida, part of our state's government, technically and officially they operate through an agreement with NASA, this facility, so that partnership I think is going to be on display. Both NASA and the state of Florida will be in a position to utilize their relationships as well as commercial partnerships to make sure that NASA and the federal taxpayer are not the payers of this bill.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for doing this. Kent Kramer, Space Up Close. You mentioned Artemis 3 a couple times. Can you, Jared, please give us an update? Where do these Pathfinder vehicles stand for Blue Origin and SpaceX now? And do you think that you'll be able to launch next year? And what kind of exhibits for that will you have at the air show? Thank you.
I'm extremely confident that we are going to be able to launch Artemis 3 next year. That's why we stepped into stacking operations. I had a chance to visit with the Blue Origin team earlier, walk the assembly line floor today, looking at components that will make their way into the Blue Origin test lander that we'll be rendezvousing and docking with. And I'll tell you, and I think if you spoke to Blue Origin, they would say the same thing. What we are going to learn from that mission, the amount of risk we're going to be able to bring down in advance of Artemis 4 will be significant. In fact, so much so I think you couple that with the uncrewed landing demonstration, you're going to be very confident about what you're going to be able to achieve in, potentially in 2028. So they're moving very quickly. I tell you, we manage the schedule down to the day collectively. Every single component to the Artemis program, we manage down to the day and down to the hour. So from the enhancements to the SLS vehicle and Centaur, to the Orion readiness on this, to suit development, to our 2 different landers, we are paying very close attention to. And we, as I've said many times, the talent across NASA is driving outcomes alongside our partners. Now, with respect to SpaceX, I think what you're witnessing, you're seeing an increase in launch cadence, and that's critical. If they're able to launch again, in early September after their last launch and continue to track inside of a month, potentially every couple of weeks before the end of the year, we're going to feel very good about their timing to contribute to Artemis 3 next year. They've already started cutting hardware for that test vehicle. We track that every single day, so that's the test lander. So we're feeling very good about that, and I'd say more so, each step along the way that you get better about Artemis 3, you're feeling that much better about Artemis 4 and its timeline in 28.
And any exhibits at the air show for this?
Well, I'd say first and foremost, you're going to have the people here. The Artemis astronauts that have flown on their missions, that are getting ready to fly on the missions, and then you're going to have the Apollo astronauts here that we're learning so much from. So I start with the people because it's probably one of the most exciting things from it. But that said, you will see rovers, you'll see landers from the CLPS programs here. You'll see a lot of hardware that either has applicability to the early Artemis missions, including very well, you might get a great view of Artemis 3 on its way out to 39B. But you'll also see a lot of the critical components for the moon base that we're building as well.
Thank you.
Pablo Fuente with Radio El Respeto on Orbita Infinita Maya. Question is for Administrator Isaacman. With the flourishing economy of private and companies like NASA, will this event represent an opportunity to recruit the best talent in the world? Do you foresee to carry out networking and recruiting opportunities to attract that talent? Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, I think as mentioned in several of our remarks, hosting an event like this, just like a launch of Artemis 2 or Artemis 3 is a great way to inspire the next generation of talent to grow up and pick up pursue a degree path that's relevant to NASA or industry's requirements, become an intern at NASA, a pathway intern that potentially becomes a civil servant or joins industry. I think the best way that we can inspire the next generation to contribute to this great endeavor is to fly our missions and do things like Max Power coming up. But I'd say we're not hosting the event necessarily to take talent away from others or so in industry. In fact, I think NASA, as I said many times, is at our best when we are doing what no company or agency or other nation is capable of doing. In a lot of ways, that's where SR-1 Freedom and the first nuclear-powered interplanetary spaceship, which will launch from here at Kennedy Space Center in late 2028, which I hope, as I mentioned, becomes the start of the nuclear NASA and attracts a lot of talent that's never in conflict with industry, but is opening up the solar system.
With the thunderstorm that we can see behind y'all and the empty mic stand, I think that will be our last question. For more information and to follow along, visit nasa.gov/maxpower. Again, nasa.gov/maxpower. Thank you all for joining us in person and tuning in to today's Max Power Expo event. We can't wait to see you in November.